All right, we're live. Welcome, everybody. Ouida, so happy to have you on. So excited.
Nice to be on.
Yeah, we'll give everybody some time to get settled in, find their way on their whatever channel they're watching this on, whether it be Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. So hopefully we've got some people that are tuning in, and I want everybody to feel free to ask questions if you have them that we can answer. Um, so we're looking forward to the next 30 minutes of hearing all about emotional intelligence and leadership and all kinds of good stuff. So,
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
yeah. So, Ouida, how long have we known each other? I was trying to think this morning when we first met. It's been how long do you think?
It's at least a year and a half, if not a little bit longer.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking, I bet it's been almost 2 years.
You know what? With COVID and everything, I was like, what?
Really, COVID was just such a, I don't know what, like a time warp, it feels like, and I also measure my life pre-COVID and now, right? Like, was that before
Absolutely.
COVID? Yeah. But I think we met during COVID, kind of at the high point of COVID.
Well, the beginning of it, yeah.
Yeah, feels like it to me too. Yeah. Where are you sitting today? You're in your house in
I'm in Queens, New York, and I tell people that I live near the airport, but I really live in the airport because we're in the flight pattern. So I can see the tails, I can see the names of the airplanes coming by. So the,
class.
the the good thing is when I need to get out of town, it's only a 10-minute ride to the airport, which is
That's
great.
great. That's great. I love New York City. Love it. Somebody I know put their apartment up. She's in Manhattan, and she posted on Facebook, "I'll be gone this fall and winter if anybody wants to rent my place for a week." And I was like, "Oh,
Mm.
oh,
Well, you know what? It will
I
be really cool to hang out with you in New
I
York.
know, I would love it. I love New York City. It's great. Okay, it's time for us to get officially started, so we'll do that. So, welcome everyone to the Nonprofit Coffee Talk. I'm Libby V, nonprofit champion and founder of Libby V and Associates. We are a consulting firm that helps nonprofit CEOs and board members thrive in their roles. And we use visioning, theory of change work, leadership coaching, fundraising support, organizational and board development to help our nonprofits clients successfully raise more money and achieve more impact in a more efficient way. So, not all nonprofits, though, can hire a consultant. Some of them just don't have the budget to do that. So, I created the Nonprofit Coffee Talk as a way to provide great content and helpful information to as many nonprofit people as I can. So, I hope you find it useful. Please feel free to suggest some other topics you'd like us to tackle, or people that you would like us to interview on and have as guests on Nonprofit Coffee Talk. So, just a shout out to my project manager, Ariel Dotson, who really was instrumental in actually launching Nonprofit Coffee Talk. I had the dream, I had the idea, and she was the one that got it organized and helped me get going. So thank you, Ariel. Today, I'm super excited to have on Ouida Duncan, who I've known for a couple years now. And Ouida is going to talk about knowing thyself. So, just a little introduction to Ouida, and then I'm going to ask her to get started. These things fly by. The 30 minutes goes by so quickly. And I know that Ouida has a ton of great information that she wants to share today. So, Ouida is known in the corporate world as the fixer. She's also a writer, poet, and nonprofit leader since 2008 when she founded her nonprofit organization. And she became a certified professional coach and Energy Leadership Master Practitioner. And she works on enhancing emotional intelligence in leaders. And I know we've all heard about EI, emotional intelligence, and how important it is to constantly be working on it. So I can't wait for Ouida to kind of enlighten us today. She has a passion for supporting and championing people on their path to enlightenment. She enjoys using her listening skills to guide, encourage, and empower individuals on a one-on-one basis. She also completed her diversity, equity, and inclusion certification from Cornell University. And to strengthen her business management skills even more, she recently earned her MBA in international business at the University of Bath in Somerset, UK. Ouida understands the mental, financial, and emotional challenges most people who work in corporate America are struggling with while trying hard to keep a brave face. She's been there as a single mom working with 4 daughters, and doing that, living and working in a big city, New York City, I believe. So she struggled, right? Like the rest of us, while growing emotionally and spiritually to rise above the circumstances that were really challenging to her. She's had to find a way out of situations that were mentally taxing and faced financial and medical stress, which is why she's really able to understand and listen with compassion, truly compassion and empathy. She listens carefully to what people say as well as what they don't say to really get to the root of their problems and help them overcome their challenges. Ouida was born in Jamaica and raised there and lives in New York City. So welcome, Ouida. Super excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Libby.
Yeah, thrilled. Absolutely thrilled. So I wonder if you could start by defining emotional intelligence, because that phrase is thrown around everywhere. And I'm not sure we're real clear on what it means. So could you just take a minute to set that stage for us? What is emotional intelligence?
Absolutely. So if you want to talk about the textbook definition of emotional intelligence, it's defined as, and it's otherwise known as emotional quotient, which is EQ. It's the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, to communicate effectively, to empathize with others, to overcome challenges, and to diffuse conflict. And the reason I think it's important for leaders to have emotional intelligence is, especially nowadays, I think, when you think back, 50 years ago, 75 years ago, when people used to work primarily in the manufacturing fields, you were, going into work, punching a clock, you were at the behest of the boss, and whatever you were told you were to do, that's what you did. So here we are now, in the 21st century, and people are a lot more sophisticated. People have a lot more choices. And as we all know, during COVID, over 4.1 million people basically said, peace out, see you later. I don't want to work here anymore because I don't feel like you're taking good care of me. So managers nowadays, leaders nowadays have to be very thoughtful and show more empathy to their employees, as opposed to being the boss, because the boss is somebody that tells you what to do. And, they basically take credit for your work. But a leader is there to support the individual team member. The leader is there to be the wind under their wings, to give them encouragement, to give them information, to make sure that they have everything that they need to succeed. And so an emotionally intelligent manager leader tends to have people that will support them as well. So it becomes a two-way street, right? So when it comes to employee engagement and retention, you want someone on your team that is emotionally intelligent and has a high EQ, because they will then take care of their team members and show them respect, show them that there's a sense of belonging, and create a space that's psychologically safe for them to work in.
Oh, that's great. And that definition really expanded my idea of what EQ or EI is. So thank you for that. I was struck when you were talking about how the workforce has changed so much, right? The culture. We used to segment our lives into work Libby, home Libby. And it was like never the two shall cross, right? And it's exhausting to do that. And younger people are just smarter than us, I think. And they've just decided, I'm not doing that. It's too exhausting and it's not authentic. And I'm going to bring my whole self to the workplace. And so I talk a little bit. I'm curious about sort of like your insight about that, and how that ends up playing out in relationship to EQ and EI.
Okay. And as I'm about to answer your question, I want to point out, I'm sure you've seen these memes or pictures of people post-COVID dressed in their business wear on top and their pajamas on the bottom and their slippers or barefooted, as they have to be on a Zoom call. And so when you talk about bringing your whole self to work, COVID presented the entire globe a unique opportunity. It presented an opportunity for people to be, to show, like I'm showing you the inside of my living room. So we got to see, people's personal lives, their favorite colors, their cats, their dogs, their whatever. And so we're living in a time, I'm from the baby boomer generation, and the Gen Xers and Gen Zers and whatever other names are coming up, but they are the future leaders, right? And as we talk about bringing your whole self to work, when I was working on my dissertation last year, I talked about the intersectionality of race and gender and the lack of psychological safety in the workplace and how it affects retention. And one of the reasons I believe a lot of people are leaving the workplace, not only do they not feel taken care of, but they don't feel like they can bring their whole selves to work, and depending on who you are, and there are all these different intersections. So for me, I'm female, I'm a melanated person, I'm a baby boomer, so I have all these different things that are intersecting. And so for me, when I'm in a corporate space, I call it code switching, or you're basically acting, right? And I think that's true for most people when they go to work. You have to kind of put on a performance, right? So I won't necessarily talk about the fact that I write poetry at work. I won't necessarily talk about the fact that I'm writing a book at work, because people might be intimidated. People will be like, oh my God, who is this person and why is she here? You know what I mean? I've literally had people say to me when I first started in advertising many years ago, and I was a department manager, I had people say to me, what are you doing here? You're too calm. And I was like, what? Oh, so you mean I'm supposed to be running around with my hair on fire? Like, is that a thing,
Yep, that's a good example, that culture thing, right?
So for me, in corporate America, I can never bring my whole self to work.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I'm sure that's true for many, many people. And of course, for me at the time, the last 8 years I was in corporate, I was growing and building Duncan tree from nothing. And, people were like, well, where do you find the time? You're working 60 hours a week, you're commuting 4 hours round trip every day, you have 4 kids, like, who are you?
Yeah.
So that's essentially it. So the future generations, I believe, I think they get it. They understand that. And I say this to my clients all the time. Your work self is still your home self. You are the same. No matter where you go, there you are, right?
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, I love it. I think it's definitely moving, right? It's changing. Um, I even see arguments on LinkedIn about LinkedIn is professional. You shouldn't be talking about personal stuff on LinkedIn. It's like, really? Because it's part of me, and I'm here, and I'm professional. So I do love the change. One of my favorite parts of getting into each other's homes, right, into getting other, is sharing pets, right? Like I've seen cats walk. So much fun. That's my favorite part. But anyway, so tell me a little bit about how you mentioned that you were calm in this marketing environment, which tends to be incredibly fast paced and like crazy. How do you handle stress? Like, how do you do that? How do you stay calm in a storm? Like, what are your reservoirs? What do you dig into? As far as emotional intelligence goes, what is that?
That's an excellent question. And I'm hoping my friend Tony Bennett is watching. And yes, his name is Tony Bennett. He's based in Wales, and he's a very good friend of mine. And he's actually been helping me to relook at the way that I handle stress. But If we roll back the clock about 25 years ago, I'm working at Gray Advertising, and my boss was the head of strategy, and he was second in command to the CEO. Actually, no, third in command. And I remember that particular environment was so toxic, and I don't mean to call anybody out, but people literally used to cry at work, Libby. People literally used to cry at work. And everything was fine. My first 6 months, he hired me to manage the presentation department and work on pitch decks and whatever have you. And so then it was my turn to get his ire, right? He was flying somewhere in Europe. I think I must have been delayed to send the presentation, whatever it was. And now it was my turn to get his wrath. And he gave it to me, and he said everything that he needed to say to me. And when he came back, I scheduled a one-on-one with him, and I'm going to change his name for the purpose of this conversation. And let's call him Bob. So I had a meeting with him in his office, and I said, Bob, I'm going to own the fact that I made a mistake. And I understand that it caused you a lot of consternation. I said, but the same way that I show you respect is the same way that I would like to have respect in return. Now, this person is extremely powerful. I could have lost my job by having a one-on-one with him, but my dignity meant more to me than my paycheck at the time. And so he apologized. He apologized.
Wow.
And at the time, I was dating someone from Egypt, and we wound up getting engaged. And he actually threw an engagement party for me at his Gramercy Park home. And there was another young lady, we were getting engaged around the same time, and he threw a party for the both of us at his Gramercy Park home. So that's how far it went. So my reservoir for, and the topic today is know thyself, right?
Yes.
The thing is, for me, the first and foremost is prayer. That's how I keep my sanity, prayer, meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And then during COVID, as someone who's used to, traveling 3 or 4 times a year, sometimes more, I became creative, and I started to go for long walks on the beach, whether it was on Christmas Day, whether it was raining or snowing, whatever the occasion was. I would go for these long walks at sunset.
Nice.
And I would go for, 4 miles, 8 miles, whatever it was, to be in nature and to be in creation. And I think also for me, writing poetry that brings the temperature down, to be able to express myself freely as a creative person.
Yeah. That's important too, right? Is figuring out what it is that for you helps to calm you and make you feel settled and focused on something that's not what's aggravating you. I think for a lot of folks, Ariel and I were talking the other day about settling your nervous system, right? Like, how do you settle your nervous system? And for you, that's, prayer and or meditation, being creative. And I would think for a lot of people, that's it. What are some ways that you've helped your clients kind of tap into their, their reserves, or help them have strategies, adopt some ways to get themselves calm?
That's an excellent question, Libby. It depends on the client. Some people are, everyone's different. I met with one yesterday, and I said to him, I sense that you are like, if you've ever seen the King Tut exhibit where they have the sarcophagus inside of a sarcophagus, inside of sarcophagus, coffin inside of coffin, box inside of box, that some people are very contained because when they were growing up, it's usually some kind of trauma happened to help shape someone's personality, right? So for some clients, even when we're having a session, I might say, you know what, let's turn on some music and we're going to dance. I've had a situation where Yeah. I've also had clients play Miss Mary Mac with me. Miss Mary, grown adults. Um, and I strongly encourage journaling. I think being able to fully express yourself in a safe space, and of course, if you live with other people, you make sure that you have a safe that you can put your journal in. But I think it's extremely important to write down your thoughts. And what I encourage people to do is especially do it at night, because what it does, it kind of flushes out all of the garbage in your brain and all of the self-talk, the negative talk that goes on with us. And it helps to center us. I've encouraged other clients to get a coloring book and color. And what that does, it helps to focus the mind.
Yeah.
And it helps to bring out your creativity, and to bring you back to that time when you were a child, when you were unafraid, right?
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah, coloring for a lot of us was very meditative as children, right? We could sit and color for a long time. It's funny because I was thinking about some people need to get small and get focused to get kind of calm and de-escalate and regulate their nervous system. And some people need big and physical and their whole body. I'm curious about that because I can remember somebody suggesting I took my kids, to see counselors when they were little, just because their dad and I were getting divorced, and I wanted to help them over that. And somebody suggested that one of my kids do yoga, and another person who was, I think, even wiser said, no, I think she needs kickboxing. Get it out. She needs to, and so there's this notion of like yoga or kickboxing, right? Coloring or climbing a mountain. I don't know.
well, guess what? I love the fact that you brought that up, right? Over 50% of us are either, children of divorce, or we ourselves have gotten divorced. And when you talk about either getting very small or getting big, I don't see them as mutually exclusive. For, in, for instance, so my eldest daughter, Chanel, and hi, Chanel, if you're watching, love you.
Hi, Chanel.
So when she was about 12, 13, I used to hire a private yoga teacher to come to where we lived. And she would have class, and I would have my two eldest daughters with me in class. And fast forward, as Chanel got older, she was always a very bright student, and she went to boarding school, and then a year she went to France for a year, blah, 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 blah. Then she went to Georgetown and all of that. And even after becoming a military intelligence officer and jumping out of planes and sleeping with a beretta on her leg in Kosovo, she decided that she wanted to be a yoga master. And when she was 12, around the time that she's learning yoga, I also signed her up for karate.
Oh, okay. So both that
You can do both. It's not mutually exclusive. It really depends on what works for you and what's going to unlock that part of yourself that you're keeping locked.
Mm-hmm.
And so recently, I'm going to tell you a quick story as we're, the time is going quickly. Recently, my school assigned me 5 mentees from the full-time MBA program. There was one from the part-time MBA program. And each one was from either South America, Southeast Asia, Europe, one from China, one from the Middle East. And what they thought they were getting with me, they thought they were getting a mentor to help them figure out how to write their resume, how to, what they should do, and how their job search strategies and all of that stuff. And that's great. And I can do that. But what was important to me was for them to really understand who they are. And entering those conversations, it made the session so much more powerful, because one of the things I asked them is, who are you? Who are you? because who you are and who you're becoming needs to be so evident to you. You need to be so clear that you can be your authentic self all the time. And so obviously when you're with your friends, you're going to be one way. When you're at work, you're going to be a different way. But the goal of that conversation was really for them to do a self-exploration and go deep. And I find that when people are not in touch with themselves and their feelings, their emotions, they tend to make poor decisions.
Yeah.
They tend to not have really great relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to read a quote here. I'm going to read a couple of quotes.
Good.
If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. And that's by San Tzu.
Oh, wow. Can you say it again? Because that is, I've heard it before, but say it again for us. That's great.
If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles.
Oh, that's great. Okay, thank you.
That's by San Tzu. I have two more quotes, okay?
Okay, good.
The more you know yourself, the more patience you have for what you see in others.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yes.
Okay, and that's by Eric Erickson.
Yes.
Eric with a K. And the last quote is by Carl Jung, which is the father of psychotherapy, along with Freud. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are.
Oh, yeah. And first you have to know thyself because before you can become who you truly are. Interesting. So I went through an exercise of writing my obituary, which was, some people think, oh, that's so morbid, but boy, it really gave me insight, right? Like of thinking about what you want people to say about you then and taking kind of yourself out of it and looking up from above, like, what do you want people to, that was kind of an interesting, what do you do? Give us a couple of exercises that specific prompts or something that will get us thinking about, getting to that. Who are we? Right.
Mm-hmm. That's such a powerful question, and I'm feeling it in my entire body. So I had the privilege of going through a 7-day retreat at the Hoffman Institute in Napa Valley, California, a couple of years ago. And I'm not going to give too much of it away because they don't like when people share too much about the program because they want people to experience it. But one of the things that we were encouraged to do was to visit a cemetery. And the reason I thought that was extremely powerful, it reminds us of how finite our time here is on earth. It brings us to a place of humility. And it's really important for people to, sometimes, we think we're going to live forever, and those of us who grew up watching Disney and Marvel and DC comics, it's about, the superhero and the external forces that are going to come rescue you, but I wrote a post the other day, and it says, the cavalry is not coming because you are the cavalry.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think humility is something that we all can benefit from. If we all can practice humility, we all came here through a woman, unless you were born in a test tube.
Right.
We all came here through a vessel. And there's a saying, none of us are going to make it out alive.
Right. That's right.
So just keeping that in the forefront. And Libby, I love the fact that you wrote your own obituary, because to me, that shows someone who has evolved and someone who is not so self-obsessed, that you do understand that one day you will expire.
Yeah, for sure.
And I say this quite often. I say to people, when you do look at a tombstone and you look at the dates, there's your birthday, and then there's a day that you die, but the dash is the most important part of that symbol, right?
Yeah.
So what does your dash look like?
Yeah, I like that. What's your dash?
What is your dash?
What's your dash?
How do you want to be remembered?
Yes.
Whatever generation you're in, if you're in Gen Z, if you're in baby boomer, tomorrow is not promised. There are people who die coming out of the womb. There are people who die before they're teenagers. There are people, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so to go back to not being morbid, live the life that you want to be proud of at the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And for some, I brought my children, two of my children have come on mission trips with me. And what they said about their experience was, wow, Mom, this really changed my perspective. It really helped me to appreciate what I have.
Mm-hmm.
Right. One of the reasons Oprah Winfrey built her school in South Africa, her school for girls, her leadership school, was because, well, first of all, Nelson Mandela kind of insisted when she was thinking about it.
Yeah.
But there's a sense of gratitude.
Yes.
That exists there that didn't necessarily exist here.
Oh.
In the United States.
Yeah.
And so, so if we can get out of our own heads, if we can kind of do a self-reflection and an internal journey, the internal journey is going to be the most important journey that you'll ever take. It'll be better than seeing the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which I've seen. It's going to be better than seeing the Giza Pyramid, which I've seen. It's going to be better than going to Australia, which I've been. That internal journey is incredibly important and powerful. And as I talk about Giza in the few moments that we have left, so in 1996, I flew to Cairo with the person I was dating at the time, who was Egyptian, and I spent 3 weeks in Egypt. On my way to Egypt, I was reading Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist.
Yes.
And what's ironic about it, as I'm, like nearly landing in Cairo, there's a part of the book, if you read the book, he talks about the pyramids.
Yeah.
And essentially, the story is about how he's basically in search of himself, but he had to find himself in his own backyard.
Yeah. That's what it is too, right? It's like you're right here. You're right here. Find yourself. And that takes a lot of journaling and quiet and reflection and and meditation and all those things. So Ouida, this has been wonderful. And I feel like we could keep talking forever, but we can't because it's time to end our coffee talk for the day. So we'd love to have you back again to talk more about this. It's been fascinating. So how do people get in touch with you?
Well, I have two different websites. So White River Consulting, which is WR, as in Robert, VRC.com. I'm on LinkedIn. So if you're watching on LinkedIn Live, you can find me on LinkedIn, Ouida Duncan. Facebook, Ouida Duncan. Instagram, Ouida.Duncan.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, I would love to meet anyone and everyone who's been watching today. And of course, this will be rebroadcasted. So would love to connect with you there.
Yeah. And we'll get this to you. So thank you so much. Somebody said, thank you. I've really enjoyed Ouida's and Libby's chat. So nice. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next Thursday at 11:30, same place, same time with a new guest, and we'll get that information out on social soon. So thank you, Ouida.
Thanks, Libby. Love you.
Love you. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.